Up to now, the stories I've shared with you were born from ancient pacts, from whispered legends and fears hidden in the folds of folklore. These were secrets guarded by communities, by families, by traditions. But there's another kind of secret, a more modern, colder, and perhaps more relentless type. Large industries, in their incessant search for resources, dig deeper than any explorer, map territories no government knows, and sometimes they find things that weren't on geological maps, anomalies that defy science and common sense. And when that happens, the protocol isn't superstition or prayer. It's a confidentiality agreement, a mass dismissal, a fabricated bankruptcy, silence bought with money and fear. War, in itself, is the greatest of horrors. It is the pinnacle of human capacity for destruction. But what happens when the conflict between men, with their bombs and their ambitions, accidentally opens a door to a much older conflict? What happens when, digging trenches, we unearth tombs that should remain sealed? Today's story is not about a ghost or a legend. It's a combat incident, a real event erased from military records and classified as a state secret. It's the story of a group of soldiers on opposite sides of a war, who fell together into an abyss and were forced to face the common enemy that lived in the darkness. I gained access to the confidential report and the interrogation transcripts of the few survivors, and what they describe as a tale of horror that makes the war on the surface seem like a minor problem. Good evening, or good morning. I am the unseen archivist. Today, we go to the Iraqi desert during the 2003 invasion. We will follow a special forces unit on a mission to find weapons of mass destruction. They didn't find the weapons they were looking for. They found something infinitely worse. They found the lost temple of a Sumerian god. And they discovered that gods, when awakened, are hungry. And before we board this helicopter, if you believe that human history is merely the most superficial layer of a much older world, leave your like to enlist in this mission. And if you want to continue declassifying these secret files with me, subscribe to the Unseen Archivist channel and hit the bell. What we will find today will redefine the concept of unknown enemy. Put on your helmets. Let's go to the combat zone. Our story begins in May 2003. The main combat phase of the Iraq War had ended, but the country was in chaos. My source, a retired military intelligence analyst, provided me with a briefing for Operation Dagger. Colonel Marcus Thorne of the Royal Air Force, using satellite data that showed subterranean signatures, convinced command that he had found a chemical weapons silo belonging to Saddam Hussein. The silo was supposedly located beneath a small village in the desert near the Euphrates River. An elite team of Royal Marines is assigned to the mission to invade and capture the site. The team is led by Lieutenant Eleanor Vance, who, in a twist of personal drama, is the wife whom Colonel Thorne is divorcing. The tension between them is palpable even in the audio records. In Eleanor's team, we have Sergeant Ben Carter, an exemplary Royal Marine, loyal and by the book, and Lance Corporal Ollie Davies, a young soldier who is having a secret affair with Eleanor, adding another layer of tension to the group. The mission seemed simple: reach the village, neutralize any resistance, and take control of the silo. The report I am reading describes their preparation, their confidence, the arrogance of a technologically superior force about to execute a routine operation. They had no idea they were flying towards a battlefield more than 4,000 years old. The interrogation of one of the survivors, Sergeant Carter, describes the arrival at the village. The place seemed abandoned, except for a small patrol of Iraqi soldiers. The confrontation was inevitable. On the other side of the battle was soldier Ahmad al-Hassan. Iraqi records, which I obtained from a journalist in Baghdad, show that Ahmad was not an extremist. He was a veteran soldier, loyal to his country, and a father whose only wish was to survive the war, to return to his son. That day, his mission was merely to defend that outpost. He had no idea what lay beneath his feet. The audio transcript of the battle is a chaos of orders, gunfire, and explosions. Britons and Iraqis, mortal enemies, fighting for a piece of desert whose true value neither of them knew. And then the earth shook. It wasn't a bomb, it was an earthquake, sudden and violent. Ahmed's testimony describes the ground opening up, the sound of rock splitting. The subterranean silo the British were looking for was, in fact, the roof of a much older and more fragile structure. The earth gave way. The ground disappeared beneath the combatants' feet. The helmet cam recording of Lance Corporal Davies, recovered from the debris, is terrifying. It records a dizzying fall into darkness amidst screams, wreckage, and the sound of the earth collapsing. And then the impact and the silence. The survivors, British and Iraqi, wake up in the darkness, wounded, disoriented, and now trapped together. The light of their flashlights reveals that they are not in a modern military bunker. They are in a place that defies history. Here begins what truly frightens. They are inside a gigantic Sumerian temple, a colossal construction from the Akkadian period. Around 2250 BC, the walls are covered with bas-reliefs and cuneiform writing. Statues of forgotten gods with stone eyes watch them from the darkness. And in the center of the main chamber, there is an even larger statue, that of a king in a conqueror's pose, but with an expression of terror on his stone face. Colonel Thorne, who was also swallowed by the fissure, manages, with the help of Ahmed, who can read a little cuneiform to translate the inscriptions. The story they tell is the first clue to the horror that awaits them. The temple was built by the Akkadian king Naram-Sin. During a terrible famine, he plundered the temple of a war god, and, as punishment, a curse fell upon his army, a plague of winged demons that came from the House of Ashes. The temple was the scene of Naram-Sin's army's last desperate battle against these demons. The inscriptions end with a warning: do not make noise. They hunt in the dark, and do not disturb the nest. They soon discover that the demons are not a legend. They are the inhabitants of the temple. The first creature appears from the ceiling. Nick's camera recording shows it for an instant. It is a pale, vaguely humanoid thing, but with bat wings, claws, and a head that opens into a mouth full of sharp teeth. It moves with impossible speed, emitting a high-pitched shriek that disorients its prey. The first encounter is a chaos of gunfire and screams. They discover that the creatures are sensitive to sound and vibration, and, more importantly, to sunlight. But they are hundreds of meters underground. There is no sun. The story from here becomes a brutal survival account. The soldiers, British and Iraqi, formerly enemies, must unite. Military hierarchy, nationalities, all become irrelevant in the face of a predator that distinguishes no uniforms. The most interesting development, documented in the audios, is the alliance between Sergeant Carter and Soldier Ahmed, two professional warriors from opposite sides who develop mutual respect as they fight side by side. They become the de facto leaders of the group of survivors. They discover the truth about the creatures. In a deeper chamber, they find a ship, an alien ship crashed millennia ago, and the fossilized bodies of its pilots. The creatures are not demons. They are the original aliens, infected by a local parasite that transformed them into these monsters. The temple was not built for a god. It was built around the fallen ship to contain the infestation, the House of Ashes. The final battle takes place in the nest chamber, an area where hundreds of creatures are in a state of hibernation in organic cocoons. The group needs to pass through there to find an escape route to the surface. They decide to use explosives to create a distraction and an exit, but this would wake up the entire hive. The escape from the temple is a climax of action and horror. The survivor's testimony describes a desperate race through the tunnels with a horde of awakened creatures on their heels. Not all make it. Casualties are heavy on both sides. The few who remain find a fissure that leads to the surface and emerge in the desert just in time for a solar eclipse. A rare event that temporarily protects them from sunlight and gives them a chance to fight. The final battle takes place under a darkened sky before the sun returns to incinerate the creatures that reached the surface. The survivors are eventually rescued, but their story is considered a delusion of combat stress. The event is classified. The Sumerian temple and its inhabitants become a secret again, buried under the sands of Iraq. The case of the House of Ashes shows us that sometimes the oldest legends and myths are not metaphors. They are field reports, accounts of encounters with horrors that our modern science has barely begun to scratch the surface of. And it leaves us with a question. How many other tombs, how many other hells are we at this very moment, risking opening with our wars, our drills, our excavations? Is humanity the dominant species on this planet? Or are we just the noisy invaders living over a graveyard of gods and monsters that are merely sleeping? Leave your theories in the comments. What do you think still lives in the depths of the earth? If this story showed you that war can have more than one enemy, subscribe to the Unseen Archivist channel and hit the bell to continue declassifying these forbidden files. Our next investigation, the last of our anthology based on great narratives, is about a group of documentary filmmakers. They receive a mysterious invitation to visit a modern recreation of the murder mansion, the infamous hotel built by Britain's first serial killer. They think it's the chance of a lifetime for a great film, but they soon discover they are not the directors. They are the cast, and the new owner of the mansion is an artist of death who wants to recreate the crimes of the killer with them. Thank you for your bravery in descending into the abyss with me. Until next time.